You would think I would have learned my lesson from last year about underestimating the New York Mets. But here we are.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTubes where I read the comments. And in fact, for a segment today, I'm going to be reading lots of comments that you have posted on here. We have a couple of people who are everyday Sully listeners, and we have some new people. Looks like we got some new listeners, or at least some new people who are posting, and you're all welcome here. And I can't stress this enough. These are very trying times. These are trying times of people being divisive in this way and that. Whatever your beliefs are, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your social beliefs, as long as we're keeping it as much to baseball as we can, this will be a respite for you. And I'm giving this out because I know there are people of all stripes who listen to the show, and baseball should be one of the uniters we have in our country. And heaven knows we need those now. If you want to leave a comment, make sure to put that hashtag Everyday Sully, and so it gives us an idea who is following us. And let's go right to the trivia question. The trivia question I did yesterday, because we talked a little bit about Mr. Omar Linares and some of the Cuban stars who we never got to see play in the major leagues. For his case, it was intentional. I said, who was the first Cuban-born pitcher to win a Cy Young Award? And a bunch of you got it. So I am going to give a new name here who I've not seen on here before. And I'm going to butcher it. N. Laverdiere. Sounds French. Maybe you're an Expo fan. My guess for your trivia question for the first Cuban to win the Cy Young Award is Mike. You spelled it wrong. You wrote Mike Seller, but it's okay. I knew what you were saying. It's Mike Cuellar. Mike Cuellar, a great pitcher who pitched for the Baltimore Orioles for the bulk of his career. Played a little for St. Louis at the beginning. He is one of those ace pitchers who had an unbelievably high peak, just not a long enough peak to make it to the Hall of Fame. Those of you like me who grew up watching baseball in the late 70s and through the 80s, Ron Guidry would have fit that role. Fernando Valenzuela would have met that role. Rick Sutcliffe would have met that role. Dave Stieb met that role, even though I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, but that's a different thing. Brett Saberhagen, Frankie Viola, Oral Hershiser, that whole group right there. And later you had people like Brandon Webb, Tim Lincecum, pitchers who had really solid peaks. Steve Avery for the Braves had solid peaks, just didn't last long enough to be a Hall of Famer, but man, had a wonderful career and was on the mound as the clinching pitcher for the 1970 Baltimore Orioles World Series title. So there you go. We are going to be covering some more viewer questions. And in the final segment, we're going to talk about who owned baseball for Thursday, the 17th day of April, and also take a look at the games going on, which would be a fun weekend. But remember last year, I saw the Mets as a team that should have been sellers, and I was urging them to be sellers because they had very interesting potential trade chips on their team. And there were so many teams jammed together in the division races and the wild card that I felt that in a seller's market, the Mets, who the year before jettisoned off Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, would have been behooved them to keep building up their farm and trade away some players. And I said, look, they had a really great I think they had a really great June, and I said, "Don't let that fool you. You should still be selling. You should still be selling. You're not a playoff team yet." And I said that over and over again. And people said, "Oh, you just hate the Mets." I don't hate the Mets. I don't. I swear to God, I don't. But I thought that was the smart thing for them to do. And I ate crow, I ate crow. I had egg on my face. I turned out to be, and say it with me. This is something you don't hear on the internet often. I was wrong. I was wrong. The Mets turned on the aft thrusters, made the playoffs on the final day of the season, or actually beyond the final day of the season, to play that wild doubleheader on the day after the season ended, just to get into the damn playoffs. Got a Pete Alonso home run to push them into the division series. Somehow, I don't know how, they got past what looked like a superior Philadelphia Phillies team and took the Dodgers to 6 games. 6 games. I was there for Game 6 at the NLCS, and they threw a bullpen game in Game 6. Los Angeles did. If the Mets had won a bullpen game against Los Angeles, there would have been a Game 7. Either way, they got to within 2 wins of the World Series. So why am I saying I didn't learn my lesson? Well, when it came down to making playoff picks this year, I did not include the New York Metropolitans, even though they had a fine year, obviously the year before, and they added a little player from the other side of town named Juan Soto. Why didn't I pick them? Well, here's why. And like last year when I was wrong, my reasoning was good. It just didn't turn out to be correct. And this year, I took a good long look at this team, and I said, yeah, they have Soto. That's great. Yeah, they brought back Pete Alonso. Fantastic. And they got, the Mark Vientos of the world, who, very talented player who could explode. And, got Francisco Lindor, who's an all-star. But I took a look at their starting rotation. And I said, I'm sorry, folks, I'm not seeing it. I saw that their big acquisitions were people like Clay Holmes, who couldn't make it as a starter with the Yankees, and Frankie Montas, who's an undeniably talented pitcher, but is always having injury issues, and Griffin Canning. Really, we're going to go that great over Griffin Canning, a guy that the freaking Angels non-tendered him. They're picking up the Angels, garbage here. And I'm like, okay, McGill and Senga and Peterson are fine, but this is not a ace. Who's the ace of this team? And not only that, but I took a look at the numbers. I thought Atlanta had a good offseason. I did. I thought they made some smart moves. And Philadelphia, I think, is an excellent team. Well, one of them was going to win the division, and one of them was going to be a wild card team. And then you took a look at Los Angeles, the defending champs. Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and call them a playoff team. San Diego, obviously very talented. And the Diamondbacks, who finished the season tied with the Braves and the Mets last year. They were better than the team that went to the World Series in 2023. And they brought in Corbin Burns to an already deep rotation. So I took a look at that and said, okay, you have probably 3 teams coming out of the West. And I didn't even factor in that the Giants were going to have a revival. And I liked that, and I liked the Phillies and the Braves in the East. And I said, it's a numbers game. I didn't like the Mets rotation. Now, obviously, we're only about 1/10 of the way through the season. 90% of the way through the season. And it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, I believe it was 2021 where the Mets were in the lead for the division for most of the year, and they didn't finish with a winning record. A lot of things can happen, obviously. But what I didn't take into account is the fact that David Stearns, who runs the Mets operations there, he's smart. He knows how to find some reclamation projects. He got a great reclamation project from Luis Severino just last year, who cashed in Sacramento. He got a great reclamation project the other year with Sean Manaea. And so when he's bringing in the Montazes and the Cannings and the Holmes, the law firm of Montaz, Canning, and Holmes, I should have trusted that he knew what he was doing. And you're taking a look, and, Canning pitched great today. 6 innings, 1 run against St. Louis. St. Louis is trying to figure out what the hell they are. But they got another win, another solid pitching performance. Clay Holmes has pitched well for them. McGill has pitched well for them. Senga's pitched well for them. And you're starting to see that they're cobbling together a pitching staff. And you also saw today, Vientos hit his first home run of the year. He may be heating up. Brett Beatty got a couple of hits. Lindor got a couple of hits. And Lindor did a great thing where he basically got in a rundown and was his own makeshift base running coach and got another run in with a little bit of smart base running there. And as I'm sitting here right now, granted only about 1/10 of the way through the season, the New York Metropolitans have a 1-game lead over Philadelphia. And by the way, Philadelphia won today against the San Francisco Giants. So they did, it's not like they're flopping, but the Braves getting off to a 5-13 start, I didn't see that happening. And the fact that the Mets are doing what they have to do, which is getting out of the gate fast. I know I've been a broken record about this, but it's because it's true. If you want to be, if there's a scenario where you're on the outside looking in, it helps to come bursting out of the gate. Yes, last year they got off to a rotten start and they got to within 2 wins of the World Series. Do you know what? That's not a good habit to get into. So maybe I should just sort of look up and say, hey, Mets, sorry that I disrespected you. 1/10 of the way through the season, you're doing everything you can. And those reclamation projects, do you know what? So far, so good. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, and web development and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Now, if you're looking to bring in people to your business, posting a job is free and simple. And within a day, you can get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork finds affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. If you need help with a marketing campaign, well, guess what? Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. The Sacramento A's kicked the snot out of the Chicago White Sox. And the White Sox are, they won a couple of games early in the year, including one against the Angels. Well, they've lost their last 4 games, and they have gone to where a lot of people thought they would go, is right at the bottom of the standings. They've lost 14 of their first 18 games. And there weren't a lot of people to see Sacramento show up in Chicago. And why should there be? Why should there be? The fans who did show up, they should give them free tickets for another game, because wow, the loyalty to actually show up to that game in the cold in, mid April in Chicago, and you're not even putting a product on the field. This is nothing on the field right there was worth watching. But give Sacramento credit. They beat them up, and they won. It's a clean sweep. It is a clean sweep. The Sacramento won 12-3 in the first game, 3-1 on the second game, and today I believe it was 8-0. Yeah, it was 8. It was an 8 bagel, and complete destruction by the Sacktown A's. And you saw Brent Rooker. Maybe he's starting to heat up a little bit. Rooker went 3 for 5. Soderstrom. What in the name of Kevin Moss is going on with Tyler Soderstrom? The A's left-handed hitting first baseman now has 9 home runs. He has 9 home runs. It's almost a guarantee that he is going to have 10 home runs before the end of April. And his OPS right now is 1.095. I mean, he is just punching his ticket to the All-Star game. And JP Sears, former Yankee farmhand, pitched himself 6 shutout innings. Here's something I do want to bring up about the A's, and I will always harp on calling them the Sacramento A's because they're the A's and they play in Sacramento. Here's the deal. If they had a home field advantage, they might be pretty good this year. Do you know what their record is? The Sacramento A's have played 10 games on the road. They've won 7 of them. Yeah, I know they beat up the Chicago White Sox. I get it. They also did well against Seattle, who's a quality team. Yes, they played, Seattle is the one quality team they played on the road. They played the Rocks and they played the White Sox. But do you know what? They still have to play them. They still have to beat them. And they've won 7 out of their first 10 road games. Do you know what their record is at home? At home, they're 2-7 with a negative 29 run differential. Negative 29 run differential in freaking 9 games. That's almost impossible. And they're going to go play Milwaukee for the next couple of games, and they'll probably do well against them. And then they'll go home to a minor league stadium, and who knows what's going to happen. But it's a shame because the A's have some interesting players, and they can be a fun team. By the way, D-Rails 93 corrects me and says Kodai Senga is the ace. All right, I'll grant you that. I will grant you that. But I mean, we'll see how it unfolds for the entire season. But we'll also see what unfolds with the A's for the entire season. If they're going to continue to play great baseball on the road, but when they head to Sacramento, how will they do? I don't know, and neither do you. By the way, another team that lost basically their first test of the year and blew their first test of the year are the other California team with a questionable location name, the Los Angeles Angels, who do not play in Los Angeles, went into Arlington in first place by themselves, and this was their first test to say, all right, if we're going to be contenders, we're going to go into your den. We're going to go into your den and try to hold our own. And how did they do? They got swept, and now they're back to 500. They got swept, and the sad thing was, and I was listening to the game. I was listening to the Angels game on the radio as I was walking my dog. The Angels pitching was not bad in the series against the Rangers. They only had up 4 runs in the first game and 3 runs in the second, but they scored a total of what was the final score of today's game? They scored 4 runs in 3 games total. And after starting the season winning every series, they've now dropped back-to-back series. They dropped the series to Houston, and they got swept by Texas, and now they're going to be playing San Francisco. And they're at 500. This is when the wheels can come. The wheels on the bus can come off really quickly. And I think it's a shame because I'd like to see the Angels do well this year. Not because I'm an Angel fan, but because I'm a Mike Trout fan. And also I'm a fan of teams not going on long ruts. Only one team has not won a single postseason game since 2009. It's gone through all the 2010s, and now we're halfway through the 2020s, and the Angels haven't won a game. So, yeah, that's a bad start that the Angels flunked their first test. Now we'll see. I mean, I'm not counting them out, but they gotta dust themselves off because they went on to face Houston and Texas, and they got the snot kicked out of them. And as Useless Trucker, let's go through some of the comments. Useless Trucker, who's an everyday Sully, says, I think the Padres took all the life force of the Angels and stole it. Angels are lifeless, looking like angels of old. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see them go around. I don't like to see franchises flounder for a while. I know there's going to be ebbs and flows, but it should be like 2 or 3 years of bad, and then you 2 or 3 years back up. I mean, there should be an ebb and flow to it, and there's been no flow in going on in Anaheim. Let's go through. Hey, a listener who's been writing a bunch recently is retired F-16 pilot. And thank you for your service. Here's what people don't understand. It's not about winning games you're winning, but it's about the games you are losing. It doesn't matter if you win a series when you lose 14-3. In fact, he wrote a bunch more. He wrote, I had to get the cliff notes of retired F-16 pilot's comment here. So let me, what he said here, if you just give me 1 second, I thought I had it already up there. 100% sure of what you were getting at there, because I don't necessarily agree. I actually think if you have a team and you wind up losing a game 14-3, in some ways, I would rather have my team lose 14-3 than 2-0 in in here we go. And I'd rather do that than see my team lose, 2-0 in 10 innings. And that may sound, that may sound strange, but the fact of the matter is, if my team loses 14-0, you can just shrug that off. You shrug that off. We didn't have it today. We didn't have it today. And it also means you're not going to have a lot of real big time stress innings when you're losing 14-3. So you can maybe give up you can rest some of your main bullpen arms. I'm not a big fan of using the position players, but to pitch, but what are you going to do? But write me more. I want to know more about that. And I want to give a shout out to, because I read one of his comments, Ben Trend Spelling. Thanks for reading my answer, Sully. My name has spelling in it because I'm a non-speaking autism guy who uses a spelling board to communicate. And well, buddy, and he wrote more here. He says, I know you work in the ASD community. We very much appreciate you and folks like you. Go Jays. And yeah, Ben Trend Spelling, thanks so much for listening and writing in. By the way, I'm getting my master's from Cal State Fullerton, great baseball college, and I wrote my thesis on the devices that nonverbal students on the autism spectrum use to communicate. And I did my whole thesis about that and being able to use it for emotional responses. And Ben Trend Spelling, you're showing that you can do it. And I'm using it with my students all the time. By the way, thanks for proving a bunch of people wrong, all right, who are trying to diminish you and everyone else on the spectrum, okay? Don't listen to these bullies out there, all right? You have a lot to offer us. You don't have a disease. You don't have an affliction, okay? Put a middle finger to their face and tell them, go watch some baseball, all right? Don't let the bullies push you around. You're smarter than that, and I can tell. Thanks for listening, buddy. And that was, by the way, what I just said was not political. It was just, honest. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades. Supply House, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast and from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free trade master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, let's take a look at who owned baseball on April 17th, 2025. Randy Arozarena hit a ninth inning game tying home run and a 2-run RBI double in the 10th to lead Seattle past Cincinnati 11-7. Andrew Heaney, yet another Pirates pitcher getting on here. You would think the Pirates would be better with all the good pitching they're getting. And I don't think there was a big fight today. He pitched in the eighth, allowing 5 hits in 7 1/3 innings as the Pirates blanked Washington 1-0. The aforementioned J.P. Sears allowed 3 hits in 6 innings as Sacramento blanked the White Sox 8-0. And Pavin Smith hit a homer and a double and walked twice to help the Diamondbacks beat the Miami Marlins 6-4. Half wobs go to Jake Fraley, who went 3 for 5 with a homer, but the Reds fell to Seattle 11-7. Richie Palacios got 3 hits, but the Rays were doubled up by the Yankees, and the Yankees played the game in Steinbrenner Field, their spring training home, but it was the home of the Rays. It was all weird. Evan Sisk, we got a rare relief pitcher half wob because there were no American League pitchers who earned a half wob today as a starter. So I gave it to Evan Sisk, who came in and stranded a couple of batters out of the bullpen and recorded 4 outs. But Kansas City lost to the Detroit Tigers 6-1. And Trevor Williams held the Pirates to 1 run over 5 innings, but the Nats were shut out 1-0. And we got a full slate of games. It should be a really fun weekend of baseball. We got one day game tomorrow. The D-backs are playing the Cubs. Corbin Burns, not off to the start that the D-backs were hoping would, but we'll see what happens as the Cubs and the D-backs are 2 playoff contenders, locking antlers. The Royals and the Tigers in an interesting AL Central game, Reagans versus Job. The Guardians want to pick up some momentum in that AL Central. Will be taking on the Pirates. Ortiz is throwing for Cleveland. The Phillies want to go on and try to continue their hot streak there. Wheeler and Alcantara, 2 potential all-star pitchers going there with the first place or the second place Phillies and the Marlins, who are kind of hanging around a bit right now. The Reds want to sort of pick things up. They had that great come from behind they had a come from behind loss today. I'm sorry, to Seattle. Abbott and Povich in the Reds Orioles, which, by the way, is a rematch of the 1970 World Series, where we talked about Cuellar clinching back then. The Yankees are still playing in their minor league facility against the Rays. Carlos Rodon, who looked miserable his last few starts. Rasmussen is pitching against the Rays. The Mariners and the Blue Jays in the all 1977 expansion series, Wu and Francis. The Cardinals and the Mets are continuing their series. Michaelis is going to be pitching for the Cardinals wants to dust himself off because he's not off to a great start. Peterson is pitching for the Mets. An all-Sox series. And remember, the Red Sox were darn nearly swept by the White Sox, so don't get too cocky, Red Sox fans. Perez, who's pitched really well so far for Chicago, is going against the dreaded TBD of Boston. The Twins and the Braves are doing a rematch of the 1991 World Series, the best World Series I ever saw. 2 very disappointing teams this year. The Dodgers and the Rangers, my pick to win the American League pennant and the Rangers. The Dodgers were not my pick to win the pennant for the National League. I picked the Phillies. Yamamoto versus DeGrom. That's an interesting matchup. Could be a World Series preview. Could Padres-Astros be a World Series preview? Well, the Padres are holding up their end of the deal. The A's are going to be playing the Brewers, and because the A's are not in Sacramento, they'll probably win that game. The Nationals and the Rockies are playing. If you show up to that one, let me know. And then down the street from me, the Giants are playing the Angels. And the Angels, if they want to show that their fun start wasn't just a fluke, it will help if they beat Webb and the San Francisco Giants. A couple more people here. Jackson 09 says, go Marlins. I tried. Still doesn't feel right. Yeah, Jackson's a Braves fan. So give him a little bit of wiggle room. But we're going to go back to. I'm going to let someone else throw out the trivia question. That is retired F-16 pilot. Here's a trivia question no one will get. And so listen up here because we'll hear the answer for this after the weekend. What year did the Padres win a championship, and who was their star player? Yes, the Padres have won. It's incorrect. Won WON a championship in Major League Baseball. I think I know what you mean. Are you talking about the made-for-TV movie, The Kid from Left Field, that I can't stop shutting up about. In 1980, there was a made-for-TV film with the then super hot Gary Coleman, who was on the popular show um, Different Strokes. And he was the son of a former baseball player played by the great Robert Guillaume, who later starred in Benson, and who's also a very fine dramatic and stage actor as well as doing Benson. By the way, watch the film Lean on Me, where he has one of the single great arguments in the history of movies with Morgan Freeman in that film. Very good actor, and he plays a retired baseball player hard on his luck, and his son, played by the precocious Gary Coleman, by hook and crook becomes the manager of the San Diego Padres. And in that film, they wind up winning the World Series on a walk-off home run against the Chicago White Sox. And this will be my counter question. You can write this down on YouTube. In that movie, who played the owner? What TV legend played the owner of the San Diego Padres in the film, the 1980 remake of The Kid from Left Field with Gary Coleman? I can't believe I'm talking about that movie. What are you going to do? All right, we got a full weekend of shows. I'm probably going to do a show on Sunday as well, and check it out. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on YouTube. And Jackson09 says, "Oh my God, I'm old, Sully. Gary Coleman is right about the movie." That's right. We're both old, Jackson09. We are Jackson09. You are an everyday Sully. Thank you. Talking about the Mets, who are doing better than I thought they were going to, and I didn't learn my lesson. And the A's, who play great as long as they're not playing in Sacramento. And somehow, yes, we turned it back into a discussion about Gary Coleman. This has been Locked On MLB. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.